have an amazing designer who's going to talk to you. He's one of the world's sort of most foremost phone designers. If you have held a phone in your hand at some stage, you have probably been touching his work. And so it's very exciting to have him here so he can talk to you about all the work which goes on behind the scenes in mobile. His name is Lael Alexander. Please put your hands together and give him a big cheer!
Now this is going to be interesting, trust me. You know, notice how they place me right after you've eaten, right after you've gotten comfortable, and it's up to me to wake you guys up, right? I'm Lael Alexander, founder and CEO of Noitavonne, and I'll tell you, it took me 45 years to get right here, right? Everyone's speaking about 5G and how 5G and connectivity and mobility has moved and changed and shift the entire industry, right? But I want to take you guys back to 2008. Now 2008 is an interesting time because for some of us, we were thinking about totally different things. Some of us was working for other companies. Some of us was thinking about starting our own companies. And a lot of us was just playing on Facebook. 2008 was when Facebook really hit their stride. Another company also hit their stride, Microsoft, an ailing company at the time, and although some of you might not agree, they were redefined by something as simple as search when Microsoft recreated themselves with the Bing engine. Changing search from just a search engine to now a decision-making engine. Well, I'll tell you, during this time, Lael Alexander was nowhere near considered a technologist. At that time, Lael Alexander was an oil and gas engineer. I actually hailed from a place called Edgard, Louisiana. Edgard, Louisiana is the home of the Bible Belt of chemical plants and refineries. So most of the individuals in that area came up in engineering, whether it be chemical or oil and gas. For 13 years, I worked in that industry from a little guy in pipe management all the way up to project management. And later we got some opportunities to go ahead and do some pretty unique things. Because you gotta understand, in 1999, oil and gas refineries was ran with Big Chief tablets and number 2 pencils. And when CIS majors came into that world and brought now laptops, programming languages, and other ways to create efficiencies, it created new industries. In fact, we didn't even have real job titles back then. For about 13 years, we didn't really know what to call our group. Today we call us program or control managers. I had an opportunity that was presented to me around 2007 when an individual by the name of Coben Ferguson, ex-head of refining for Texaco, took a look at a program that I had developed to actually eliminate a lot of the workload. If there's any coders or programmers in the room, you guys know that we make programs to do the things that we don't want to do because inherently we're lazy, right? So this program, we named it PREMARK. It was an acronym. It stood for Plan, Resource, Execute, Monitor, Audit, Report, Control. This system was developed into a hybrid of software and human assets that would go out to the plants and collect all of this relative data that would actually even tell them the speed of production in miles per hour based on conditions, and man, it was good. It was good. We thought we had something. Well, we later went on to using instruments to take some of that data from the workforce to the process data and actually started capturing all of those measurements and started developing reports and analysis that refineries would use to later project all of their efficiency. That's my start. That's not really where I ended. Let me explain. I was invited to Beaumont, Texas, and at the time I thought we were only going to be doing another refinery project. At the time, refineries were really going through major issues as far as dealing with government regulations, drilling oil and gas, it was a mess. Our team, the Pre-Mark team, was actually set out to go ahead and look at some utility aspects of working with some of the local municipalities. And we became very good at alternative energy development, developing aeroderivative power plants and things of that nature. About eight months into developing this, we get a phone call from LADWP, and this is when my world changed. Los Angeles was touted as the world's largest municipally owned utility company. Some of you out there are in the market of IoT and machine-to-machine programming. Well, the story that I'm about to tell you is the background of how the IoT industry really started in America. How many of you are familiar with pole-top transformers and how it relates to you having energy uptime at your home? When a transformer blows up, that's a blackout in your area. Believe it or not, before 2007, there was no early warning systems that would alert the utility companies of when that transformer was either healthy or had an issue. This was one of the projects that actually started during the era of Google and their open source product that you now know as Android. I was one of the Apache developers on Android, and one of my unique contributions to this project was actually stemmed from this one utility project. You see, the UTMB sensor, or unattended monitoring device, required a solution that would allow for a tablet device to communicate with the sensor. Back then, we weren't really familiar with the 802.11 protocols or how tablets communicated with devices that were above 10 feet away from you. And I want you to really understand, we were up against some major hurdles because we had to deal with the ohms of the power line. There was no packets or data packets or protocols developed that you can just copy as source code and plug and play like some of the things that we have now. So we had to really be innovative. One of the things that we thought to do was use some pretty unique ways of meshing DLNA protocols with some other unique protocols over a specific frequency, the 2.4 gigahertz frequency that you guys now know as Wi-Fi. In doing this, we connected our utility tablet to this unattended monitoring device on pole-top transformers across the state of California. The first smart grid project in the United States of America, which later led to other machine-to-machine prototypes that are now widely successful. But in this, there was another issue that the utility companies really wanted to take care of. They had technicians that wanted to communicate with these devices out into the field. So again, we were called on to build these application packets that would allow the technicians to communicate with these devices all across California. Now, we thought that this was easy early on, and we had some assistance from some pretty awesome companies. One you guys may know of, a company called High-Tech Computers. At the time, they weren't called HTC. You guys know them as a phone maker. Back then, they were building a kit that would allow developers like us to go ahead and create a mobile device that communicate on the Android operating system on your private DSN networks. So we took this device and we had our Sierra Wireless modem with our communication nodes that would monitor and measure all of these different metrics that would come off of our transformers. And when we powered both of them on, one unique thing happened. I powered the utility tablet 2008 on, and I powered the sensor on, and the utility tablet gave off the screen of the sensor. It was a major problem. We didn't understand what was going on because it was really supposed to just send data back to us. But what it was sending was the actual screen. So everyone around me thought, Alexander, you did it. Your greatest failure. You were supposed to give us data, and all you ended up doing was mirroring the screen of this device that you guys had out in the air. At that time, I realized that I had a eureka moment on my hand. Because, well, as you guys know, Mira Cast was born. These guys decided to go ahead and continue to chase energy projects. And China came knocking. Mira Cast opened up the doors for me, but I had some other skill sets. I'm sorry, let me back that up. I don't know if you guys caught that. Mira Cast was developed by a total mistake. 802.11 protocol using DLNA and operating over a 2.4 gigahertz frequency was a pretty unique thing in 2008. If any of you guys are developing around that, you know that those technologies were even called Wi-Fi back then. We didn't even call it Wi-Fi, right? So when we created this frequency, we had AT&T, our largest carrier at the time, operating off of their one of their data packets, because they were the ones that gave us our private DSN. They looked at what we were doing as far as collecting data, and within the first 15 days, AT&T kept calling us back and saying, hey, are you guys starting the test? I said, of course. He says, one of the guys, Mr. John, says, well, we're not seeing any loads coming across these SIM cards. That's because there was no loads coming across the SIM cards. All of our sensors that were up on all of these pole top transformers was creating its own frequency and its own unique network that didn't require any spectrum. Unique. I gotta go back. I think we're missing everybody. This was very unique. In fact, some would say that this was a lower version of what we're calling 5G today. Seriously. 2.4 gigahertz frequency. I'm connecting 312 devices to one tablet without using any carrier spectrum. Now that should get you guys interested. Now I know I'm stumbling, but that should get you really, really interesting because of the year that it took place. It took place in 2008. Let me remind you, Google was not the Google that it is today. It did not own Android at that time. I gave you a little precursor. It was the Apache project. It was an open source. Google hadn't bought us yet. And my contribution to the Android operating system was Mira Cast. In America, there was only 6 carriers that were labeled Tier 1 common carriers. Tier 1 common carriers, operating nationwide in all the extraterritorial areas. And here I am, a total outcast to the entire telecom market, using the utility grid to carry major signal and major data transfer, and other people aren't getting paid for it. This is a problem. So I got a knock on my door. Me and the 18 engineers that were working on this project. But mind you, I had some pretty great partners. See, Edison, large energy company, AT&T, large telecom, and us, we're doing something new. Again, the first machine-to-machine contract in America was signed around this project. And FCC had to do something pretty special because at that time, we were touted as hacking the entire power grid. A little company in Texas hacking the power grid. The term smart grid came about when you found out who Obama was. I'm sorry, do you guys know who Obama is? Yeah, okay, I'm trying to get some crowd participation here. The term smart grid came about because in order to change the perception of what we were really doing, we had to really change our marketing approach to explain to cities and municipalities that by us doing this, this would actually aid in your efficiencies, your consumptions, and your delivery methods to your consumer base at a lower cost because knowing is saving, right? So telemetry became a very big thing. And the government, instead of locking us all up for hacking the power grid, looked at our company and said, I think we need to create a special use permit, which later in 2012 turned into the 7th Tier 1 common carrier license in our country, owned by yours truly, right? Guys, that should be a clap. I don't know if you know how big that is. Thank you. We'll work together on this. So, knowing that we were very, very early, and 2.4 gigahertz and 3.2 gigahertz wasn't really being used this way. Because the way you use Mira Cast, or the way you use an iShare or any other form of technology that allows you to connect your mobile to a screen, look it up, smartphone companion loop. Every phone, every device, every smart anything that was made since 2010 has the DNA of that patent all engulfed in it. It's our patent, right? So when you look at it, thank you. So when you look at it, we were pretty impactful in this entire market. The entire mobile boom. Because I keep trying to bring everyone back to 2008. One of you had an idea to create a tablet or a phone or a PC. One of you had it, but I need you to understand there was only 13 companies in the market that could produce it. And those 13 companies protected themselves so much so that, well, those of you that are called startups today were called employees back then. Because there was no startup. There was only you working for brands that took your intellectual property and brought them to the mainstream. Am I correct? Is there anyone in the crowd that would challenge that notion? Thank you so much, I appreciate that, all right? So, by that time, if this young man right here, Mike, had an idea to go ahead and create the world's best tablet, and 2008 was when the iPhone was first introduced to the market, right? That got mass appeal. Mike had no one to go to build it. There was no company around that you can actually knock on the door and say, hey, listen, I need you to build me a 4.7-inch phone with, who's making the modems, by the way? It wasn't even a question, because we took what the brands gave us back then. Some would say that 2009, or that was 10 years ago, ushered in a whole new way for consumers to demand more from those big brands. And when those big brands didn't deliver, consumers chose to become brands. Well, I saw this as a movement. And understand, I had a pretty unique key to unlock the doors of, you will never believe this, a little Louisiana boy. Unlock the doors of China. I gotta tell you a little bit about that story, because when I first landed in China, it was all about the Mira Cast, or the smartphone companion loop protocol. Because China companies wanted to understand how we were doing these things. How were we stringing mobile phones together? How were we stringing computing devices together on networks that didn't require telecoms to be involved? So a company called Inventec, IAC, look it up, guys, this is great. The reason why I can talk to you about this is no more gag orders, guys, 10 years. IAC came to pick me up from Houston. I get to Shanghai, Pudong, and if any of you guys have ever dealt with China back then, they were used to dealing with America and teams. It almost seems as though America always sent teams to other countries. So whenever they were welcoming you, they had a team waiting for you, right? So imagine me, dressed in all my splendor, getting off of the airplane, walking in and seeing a sign saying Alexander and a company that they could not pronounce. The word Noitavonne, innovation spelled backwards. Now we all can pronounce it, right? The word Noitavonne on the sign. So I walk in, baggage claim, and the gentleman walks up, and about 13 other people walk up as well. And he says, Alexander, how you doing? Very nice to meet you. Where's your team? We have the vans outside. Sorry, sir, I'm a team of one. He says, have you ever been to China before? No, sir. Of course not. What would I be doing in China? He says, do you speak Mandarin? Right. He says, do you realize that the reason why we invited you up is because we wanted you to give a technology review on the smartphone companion loop. And all of these people, about 40 engineers, only speak Mandarin. Now this is a problem. So I said, tell me something, do you guys have a whiteboard? He says, yes. I said, do the people write Linux, or do they understand Linux? He says, yes. I said, well, great, because code will be our language from now on. And that's what happened. The first 3 minutes of the conversation was quiet, and all I did was write on the whiteboard. And by the 4th minute, I got a question in English, because all Chinese executives speak English. They all do. Hey guys, listen, I know that my time is running short. I didn't even get into the things that I wanted to get into because I started warming up late. So maybe they'll invite me to come and go ahead and talk a little bit more, but I'll just tell you real quick. From 2009 to 2012, we were the leading design house in Asia. Some of you guys have probably heard of Noitavonne CCOM. Noitavonne CCOM was the first ODM that gave startups and brands the opportunity to go ahead and build their own product, put their brand on it, and go off to the market. You might have seen some of them, from Micromax to DNS to Blue, you name it. As being one of the first ODMs, by 2014, there was more phones circling the globe that I had personally designed than iPhones were sold. It was a pretty interesting time for us. Today, Minority Startups is represented by the 4 years from now to give individuals like me that had no entry into the technology sector a way to get in. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for your time, and I gotta get on the stage with my big man that's coming up. Thank you guys so much.
Guys, put your hands together for Lael Alexander!